AskReddit by suffocated by thighs. What simple mistake has ended lives? There have been too many instances of rock climbers rappelling off of the ends of their ropes, which could have been easily avoided by tying stopper knots at the ends of their ropes. Same with tree climbing. I worked at a tire place for a summer and the first thing they told me was, see that tall wrench? One mistake with this and you can kill a whole family in a matter of seconds. I thought, well, better take this thing seriously. Man, for a second I was thinking, fuck, you'd have to swing that thing around fast to take out an entire family, and just blue screened on the idea of changing a tire. Ferrec 25. The world's deadliest software error. Cost several radiation patients their lives by administering lethal amounts of radiation, and for a while, the doctors didn't even know. Ferrec 25 suffered a particularly vexing sort of error known as a race condition. Essentially, the circuit required multiple inputs in a particular sequence, but sometimes the timing of that sequence could get thrown out of whack and it would lead to all sorts of nonsensical output. This is less than ideal when all you're doing is manipulating pixels, but when your software is handling radiation beams you really don't want this to happen. Even more vexing is that race conditions are frequently Heisen bugs, which can vanish altogether when one attempts to study them. If you don't have a good idea of what's causing the error, you may never cotton on to what sort of bad input is required to test it. Under those circumstances it's easy to write them off as imaginary, only to then find. As a healthcare worker, giving the wrong amount of insulin. During the first shift of my first clinical rotation in nursing school, I watched a nurse draw up insulin out of an auto-injector pen that was clearly marked to specifically not do that, and she was drastically wrong about the dosage and almost killed a guy by giving him essentially like 100 times the intended dose. Leaving the stranded vehicle on the road in winter and trying to walk to get help. It happens in rural parts of our province once or twice a year, and they find the body a few days later. They get disoriented and freeze. I grew up in Minnesota, and when I got my first car, during the winter, my dad told me, unless you can see the lights of a building, don't get out of the car. Pulling the knife out of someone. Yeah, I did that, but it was a broken tree branch that had impaled my leg. Without even thinking, I pulled it out. Blood started gushing, so I pulled off my shirt and tied it into a pressure bandage. I was lucky I didn't bleed to death. Mixing cleaning ingredients. My dad was trying to unclog his kitchen drain and mixed drain cleaners by adding one then adding another a few minutes later. It started bubbling and he began coughing intensely. I heard him coughing from the other room, saw what happened, and opened the nearby window to get rid of the chlorine gas he just produced. I forgot there was a large hive of wasps that had moved into that window, and they did not appreciate this unexpected interruption. I took him to the emergency room for the gas exposure, and it was tough explaining that the wasp stings were not why we were there. A friend's husband locked himself out of their home. He tried to get in through a window that had security bars. While squeezing through, his foot slipped and he essentially hung himself on the windowsill. A friend of mine's stepmother died this way. Locked herself out, tried to climb in through a bathroom window head first, lost her balance and fell, breaking her neck. Almost any simple mistake can end a life if you're an anesthesiologist. That's how my grandpa died in his early 60s. I talk about this at work all the time. I'm a librarian, so if I'm having an off day, the worst thing that'll happen is I'll catalog something slightly incorrectly. Then I remember that cardiac surgeons are human and have off days, too. Deleted. Oh, I've seen the video of that. Trucker was changing the playlist on his phone and just destroyed that car. Respected cardiothoracic surgeon tells a guy to stop smoking right outside the hospital doors. Guy turns around and punches him a single time in the head. King hit, or coward punched, whatever you want to call it. He falls to the floor and hits his head a second time. On life support for 4 weeks. Nothing left to save. https://www.thelada.com.au/story/4757890/box-hill-hard-surgeon-dice-after-alleged-1-punch-hill-1. People underestimate how easy it is to kill someone, even accidentally. Long ago I was on the crew of a submarine older than me. We went into the shipyard. One of the planned jobs was to install some new equipment that required a hull penetration. One Friday afternoon a shipyard worker drilled a 1-stroke 8-inch pilot hole through the hull, intending to come back on Monday to finish the job. The job got cancelled, he got reassigned, and the hole remained. It was covered with duct tape to keep dirt out. The painters went ahead and sprayed over the tape. How deep can a piece of duct tape plus paint hold on a dive? About 218 feet. Before you ask, yes, we survived. Oh, phew, I thought you died. Ignoring signs when cave diving. Bitch, they put a Grim Reaper on it, turn around. Edit, actually, cave diving to begin with. Fucking crazy people. Deleted. NASA executives overriding engineers on the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. I feel really bad for Bob Ebeling, an engineer at Thiokol, who had PTSD for the rest of his life because he did everything he could to stop the launch and nobody listened to Dart. Getting fired up from road rage. The Herald of Free Enterprise not closing the boat or 193 drowned. I remember as a kid thinking it was cool and very safety conscious how every cross-channel ferry had as the final announcement from the bridge before departure, we can confirm the bow door has been closed and sealed, and, looking back, I'm super glad I had no idea why they were making that so explicit. I read an article a long time ago about a aircraft maintenance worker not removing a piece of tape that was put in place to protect a sensor during cleaning. The pilot failed to notice during the pre-flight inspection. More than 100 people died in the plane crash. It was multiple sensors apparently. Pilot had no altitude, airspeed or air pressure. https://spokesman.com/stories/19966/nov/05/duct-tape-sensors-led-to-plane-crash/ People outdoors getting amazed when their hair stands up during a thunderstorm. P.S. It means you're about to die. Since I'm bald I must be invincible in storms. Some homeopathic medicine for babies still contained deadly amounts of belladonna. Some babies died. Apparently, they did not dilute it as extremely as they were supposed to in homeopathy. Babies under 6 months shouldn't even be given water. https://www.healthline.com/health/baby/y-can't-babies-have-water-interference homeopathic variety, which is just water with extra steps or not. In 1854 a woman named Sarah Lewis threw a diaper from her dying baby into a London cesspool, resulting in cholera, killing 616 people after it contaminated a popular well. The Halifax explosion. December 1917, a ship with a hell of a lot of explosives ran into another ship that was traveling on the wrong side of the shipping lanes. An explosion the equivalent of 3 kts of TNT killed nearly 2,000 people, caused a tsunami, and injured 9,000 people. Keeping in mind the recent Beirut explosion was close to 1 kiloton of TNT. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Halifax_explosion. If I remember correctly, this was the largest man-made explosion in human history, right up until the invention of the atomic bomb. A neighborhood kid I grew up with got his Honda all tricked out. He had an aftermarket remote start on it, back when those were rather new. Apparently the remote start activated while everyone was asleep. I guess the theory was he left the keys in his pants when he fell asleep. Car was in the garage. Entire household, parents, brother, sister, and Isaac all died. Ugh, my parents almost died in a somewhat similar way. They were helping me clear out my house to prepare it for sale and came and visited. There was a major snowstorm and I decided to hire some guy off Craigslist to shovel the snow off the roof. He got it done. Great. I didn't have to use my giant snow rake or hop up there myself. Later that night I decided to go out for drinks. It was only 10-11 and while I might have stayed out later I decided to call it an early night. Got home and the house smelled like gas and combustion. Very familiar to me as a glass blower. They were just I don't smell anything. I was very sure and called the gas company. Gas company came over with their handheld detector and we HMM. Tons of company. Turned out the guy shoveled all the snow off without thinking of avoiding blocking the furnace output, and I didn't think of it. So the gas heater exhaust was coming back into the house as there was an 8-foot pile of snow over it. Not wearing a seatbelt. Same for helmets on a motorbike. Always treat a gun like it's loaded. Never point a gun at something you don't want to destroy. Never put your finger on the trigger unless you want to fire the gun. Not having a carbon monoxide detector. Deleted. My neighbor let his 15-year-old drive on the interstate coming back from a Florida vacation because he was tired. He crossed the line, flipped the vehicle and the entire family ultimately didn't make it. I could be remembering a similar but different story, but if it's the same one, I thought the kid driving survived and his parents and I think sister were killed. Basically everyone but him. And wasn't it also nighttime? Edit. I remember hearing about the story I'm talking about like not long ago either. Sometime in the last 3 years. Not looking both ways when crossing a street. Archduke Franz Ferdinand's driver making a wrong right turn down a side street. Word war. I had a lot of simple mistakes that cost lots of lives. We're going into battle like we always do. Riding a horse, in full dress uniform, with all its colors, and large plumes for better command and control. Grenfell Tower. Kensington and Amp, Chelsea Borough Council saved £5,000, $6,000, by not installing the slightly more expensive fireproof cladding, and instead used Renault Pay which, as described by one report, acted like solid petrol in the fire. This caused 72 deaths and hundreds to suffer from homelessness, mental health problems and trauma. This wasn't a mistake though, they just didn't care. I was working alone and fell off a ladder beside an empty shaft where stairs used to be. I fell 20 feet off the ladder down the shaft. I caught myself on a railing that had been left behind and hit the floor below. I got off really lucky. I was bruised up and it took about 20 minutes till I could get up. If that railing wasn't there I was probably dead because I would have fallen 2 more floors to the basement. Also saw a guy who also fell off a ladder. He was 3 steps up. Smashed his head and got perma brain damage.